show up a moment. And we've got so the schedule is, we're here until 11:30 today because we've got the floor at 12, or rather the all-member caucus at 12. So we're going to have a short lunch. If we can get out a little bit before 11:30, we will. But we got a couple things. We're going to hear some testimony first from on H81 from some farmers, both here and in person and on Zoom. And then Representative O'Brien is going to give us a quick update on the activities of the Milk Commission, the commissioner, newly appointed commissioner. Then we have, and this is not on the agenda or may have been updated to the agenda, but the committee is going to need to offer an amendment to the budget bill because the language that we worked so hard on, somehow there was perhaps a clerical or a technical issue in the committee there. So we're going to need to amend it, and everyone's on board with that, but we just do need to do it. So we'll have Mike O'Grady come in. David Hall is going to come in, and we're going to do some more work on the language of H81. All of that before 11:30, believe it or not.
Oh.
So why don't we, without further delay, get started? And we've got Todd Hardy with us this morning. So Hardy, if you'll come up to the table, and we will, it seems like you already know some of us, but we'll go around the table quickly and introduce ourselves. And then we'll hopefully get going, but why don't we start down there?
Todd, hi. Josie Levitt, now Grand Isle. I'm in the Grand Isle Chittenden rep, which is Grand Isle County and South Milton.
Great.
Good to see you.
Mike Rice, represent the Bennington Rutland District, so towns of Danby, Dorset, Landgrove, Mount Tabor, and Peru.
Good morning, John O'Brien. I represent Windsor Orange 1, which is Royalton in my hometown, Tunbridge.
David Durfee, represent Shaftesbury in Bennington County and Sunderland and Glastonbury.
Rodney Graham, represent Orange 3 with Williamstown and Chelsea.
Jed Lipsky, represent Lamoille 1, Stowe.
Great.
Charles Wilson, Caledonia 3, which is Linden, Sheffield, Wheelock, Sutton, and Newark.
Okay.
I'm David Templeman, Orleans 3, Brownington, Barton, and Westmore. And your kingdom too, aren't you?
Greensboro.
Oh, very good.
Yeah.
We have Laura Rich, who I think you have spoken with, and then we have one visitor off to the side here.
Hi, Bridget Morris with Morris Government Affairs. I'm here on behalf of John Deere and Case New Holland.
So, good morning. Let you get started.
An honor to be here. I could have come on Zoom and stayed on the farm, but this is so important to me that I was happy to be with you all. I grow grain in Greensboro at Thornhill Farm. I brought some winter rye with me. We supply
Doesn't look open, or looks
bakeries across northern Vermont, city markets, and Caledonia Spirits in Montpelier.
Oh.
My life's about bread and whiskey.
Add chocolate and you got a trifecta.
I am president of the Northern Grain Growers Association, working closely with UVM Extension, co-founded by Heather Darby. I'm on the board of the Natural Organic Farming Association. And I'm going through the permit process to build the Champlain Valley Grain Center in Ferrisburg on Route 7 to receive grain from farmers on the day of harvest and after. Clean it, dry it, store it, clean it again, mill it for bakers and to make whiskey. All in support of jobs, grain farming, and the working landscape. We have been frustrated for years on the farm because when one of our tractors has an issue, it stops. We work with John Deere, all green tractors. It's a very tight schedule between when we harvest grain. The yearly average has been August 12th for years. And that takes days. And then immediately we start to prepare the straw, again with tractors, to dry in the sun and to bale. We supply straw to people in the Northeast Kingdom and Northern Vermont. That's often as important as the grain itself. It's during this 3-week period from August 12th to September 8th or so that we do not leave the farm. The schedule is so tight. We're not in Eastern Oregon where the sun dries the crop. We are in a part of the world, Northern Vermont, that is often wet. And we pay attention to the temperature, not only to drying the grain further in the silo, but for working with tractors on the land. We can't work in the rain. We can't work when the soil is wet. We have to respect the soil. That hurts the soil, hurts the air pockets. And so every day is dedicated to working with tractors. And when we have a problem with a tractor and it stops, we're not able to fix it most often without knowing what the problem is. So we have to make a service call to John Deere. We have to wait for their schedule. It's a minimum of $400 to $600 for them just to drive to the farm. This is not a business where there's a lot of extra cash flow. I try to have $100 in the bank account every time, every day, to pay help, to pay for diesel, to pay for taxes, overhead. We have really good mechanics on the farm, but they cannot do anything often without John Deere showing up with their computer and doing a diagnostic run on what's going on with our tractor. If the tractor's limping along, we still stop it because these are expensive machines. $100,000, $200,000, $300,000, $400,000. They're an investment. The easy part of getting a tractor is John Deere Financial. The credit's good. We can go up anytime we want and sign on for a tractor. Then it comes the years of paying for it each month. And we have to keep our credit good because there's always borrowing for more machinery. We accept that when we buy a tractor. We accept the cost. I'm a capitalist. I believe in the free market. I'm a proud Vermonter, a proud American. But there's a dark side of all that, and that's the service. It's very easy to get a $1,200 service bill, $1,600, $2,400. It's intense, and you have to pay for it. When you give your word to someone to pay for something, you have to come through, and we have, and that's why we've grown. And that's why we're going to be able to spend a couple $1 million building a grain center in Ferrisburg, because our credit's impeccable. But it's intense and it's not fair. I believe that when you buy a tractor, you sign on freely, but after that, there should be a free market opportunity to fix the tractor. And they do break. The harvest time and the planning basically is about how you can deal with repairs. It's kind of like being in county fair and they're throwing water balloons at you. You duck, sometimes you don't get hit, and sometimes you get hit a lot. And it's a question of whether something breaks every 45 minutes or every 2.5 hours. There's not a day that goes by without a need for a repair. And when the repair is needed on a tractor, we as a team, with our incredible group of qualified mechanics, need to be able to fix it. We are committed to this business of grain. I see the grain world as incredible community of building community development. I work with bakers, farmers, millers, maltsters, brewers, distillers, extension agents, scientists. And it's a tide that's rising in Vermont. And we need the access to be able to how to fix our tractors immediately, because we can't wait overnight if there's a storm coming the next day. It's an incredibly tight schedule. As I said, we don't leave the farm basically for 3 weeks because we have to attend to this very narrow window between harvest and replanting. And I appreciate your considerations of the bill for us to have the right to fix what we own. And we are paying heavily for the purchase and operations of our tractors.
Great, thank you. Representative O'Brien had a question.
Since we're not grain farmers,
Yeah.
could you just describe your sort of fleet? Like, do you have a combine or what specialized equipment that most of us wouldn't have, that you have to do?
We have 2 John Deere tractors. We rely on Seth Johnson coming down 10 miles from Glover with his John Deere combine. We rely on Sean Chang coming from Waterford with his Great Plains grain drill to plant. We traded a silo to him for planting for 3 years because we didn't need to. We only grow rye now. We don't grow barley. We sell out every year, so it was just much simpler to plant one. We have 2 tractors, and they both depend upon a readout from John Deere on what's going on because we can't tell all the time.
You use manure injectors, or you have to use drills, right, and cultivators, things like what are you pulling with these tractors?
We pull what we call secondary tillage disc harrows. The plowing's really only done once, and then after that, we lightly scarify the ground before replanting, and the tractors pull everything.
Representative Levitt?
Have you, this is sort of two-part question. Have you ever had a tractor break down and literally imperil your grain crop? So you've actually lost money because you haven't been able to fix a tractor? And if you had all the diagnostics, would you have someone, it sounds like you do, you said you have good mechanics, would someone then, if they were able to plug into the computer, would they be able, do you think, to reasonably fix the tractor?
We have had an issue 3 years ago when John Deere could not come on time with their portable computer. And the crop got wet, and we had to wait another 2 days with the sun coming out in order to dry it again. With our crops, if we don't dry the grain, it rots. And it can rot in the field, and it has. It starts to sprout. It sends out a little tail from the seed head, and the carbohydrates change. And the danger is always that the crop is then not food grade for what we need for a price, but becomes cattle grade for 1/3 of the price.
Okay.
The cattle eat anything. But if we're going to sell it to bakers and pass the test at UVM, Grain Lab, for selling for food grade, it has to be impeccable and dry. And what was your second question?
Oh, if you had access to all of the John Deere
Yeah.
equipment for fixing it, would you reasonably be able to fix your tractor so you wouldn't have gotten caught up?
Yes, we have, the 2 farmers I mentioned earlier are impeccable mechanics. We also have a mechanic living on the farm as part of our team
Okay,
that can fix anything. Yeah.
thank you.
Representative Lipsky?
Todd, are your tractors, what vintage are they?
Our John Deere 5085E is 2014. And our John Deere 990 is a couple years earlier than that.
2012.
Yeah.
I asked because we've had a lot of testimony about circuit boards. When did they really first start coming in and dominating virtually all the, the fleet? But the follow-up is, do you need a different diagnostic system for those two different model tractors? Or if you were to purchase one from John Deere with the computer and all the diagnostics, would you need a different connector to diagnose each of your piece of equipment, or would one do it?
I don't know. We rely on the John Deere repair person coming to the farm, always with a truck big enough to take the tractor back. And that,
Not a good sign.
that's where the $400 minimum is. And that does happen if it can't be fixed in the field, once they find out what the issue is. But if there's a blinking light on that dashboard, I'm not going to continue, because this is one of our sizable investments, and we have to keep it running and in good shape.
And the final follow-up would be, have you asked to John Deere to purchase any of this diagnostic equipment heretofore? In the past, have you asked?
No, we haven't. We have all the manuals and we pour over them when there's a issue, but we have to call them up.
Representative Graham?
So when you're harvesting, you use your tractors to pull wagons?
We do. So Seth Johnson will come with his John Deere combine, and then the tractors are pulling what's called a gravity wagon, basically a big box on four wheels. So we're very attentive to the combine in the field. It's kind of like being at the Indy 500. You have the pit crew ready to change tires and put gas in the vehicle. We're out in the field with our gravity wagons, with our tractors, to have him unload. And then we take that back to the grain cleaning by the silo. We clean our grain of weed seeds and leaves that are wet and have microbes on them that day before we go to bed, whether we finish at 10 p.m. or 2 a.m. Because we're really into quality, and we cannot have our crop go bad and rejected. So those tractors are kind of like the fleet that's all over the farm. The farm is about 1.5 miles long. And so we're very attentive to the gravity wagons and kind of following the combine around. And we have two gravity wagons, and we borrow another. And they're parked all over the place because we have to keep going and service the combine and bring that grain back to the silo where it's cleaned.
Representative Levitt?
Super fast question. When John Deere comes and takes your tractor away, what's the turnaround time to get it back?
You never know.
You never, okay.
It's a total crapshoot.
Okay.
Excuse my language.
Go, please. You know me. You can.
It's a mystery.
Okay.
It's never going to be what you want. If it breaks, if they get there finally at 4 p.m., it's not going to be the next day. And meanwhile, you've got a crop in the field. We're dealing with the biological activity of a plant that's in the ground for 11 months and then is maturing with the sun, the wind, all through July, August. Yeah, so it might be 3 days. It might be 10. You do not know. It depends on their schedule. And we're total mercy to that.
Representative O'Brien?
So do you use United Ag and Turf in Derby?
Yes,
Okay.
Yeah.
How many acres do you crop?
we have 80 acres.
And how many sort of grain farmers growing these high-end grains are there in Vermont? Give us some context.
I mentioned the two in Derby and Waterford, and there's another 6 or so scattered throughout the state. It's a small industry, but it's an important industry. And my work as president of the Northern Grain Growers Association is to encourage others, and that's happening. I'm very excited about what we're doing. One thing we do is we give a crop to dairy farmers that are stopped milking cows. The Myers and Hardwick have stopped milking cows 3 years ago, and I've supported them in starting a farm-based distillery for the grain they grow. And in Waterford, the Jang family has stopped milking cows 5 or so years ago. And you see their farm from the interstate when you go from St. Jay to New Hampshire. And they farm 200 acres and have started NEK Grains. In Addison County, where we're building, we've stopped offering farmers a market because there's so many of them that want to grow grain. And as we get closer, we'll pick that up again, because I was starting to get pie in my face a little bit, because it's going to be a couple of years to build this grain center. So I think, in Charlotte, there's the Kenyon family, and Rutland County, there are others. Might be 8 of us that I know about that are members of our grain growing association. But we're supplying more and more grain to bread and spirits in Vermont. And it's a much higher quality product, and it's exciting. The tide is rising, but very slowly. And certainly having a right to repair our equipment will help that.
Just before we take Representative Templeman's question, I wanted to check and see whether our next witness, Mr. Kelly, was here, coming in, or.
Yeah, he was gonna make time if he could today, but there was no guarantees that he'd be available at this time when I spoke with him yesterday, so.
He's not
in the
sitting
waiting
on
room.
Zoom.
He's not in the waiting room
Okay,
as of right
all right.
now, and I'd say you guys can keep
Okay,
going with this discussion.
okay.
So regarding Seth Johnson, I work with him. I buy my hay from him. Is he still growing grain?
He is very much so, grain and beans
Right.
and hay and cows.
I just put a text forward to him to ask his opinion on right to repair as well. I also wanted to ask, can I open the jar?
Of course,
Thank you.
of course. That was harvested last August.
And you were mentioning when it starts to decay, fingers coming out. Is that irrigot?
No, that's a sprouting and a change in the carbohydrates,
Right.
which means the quality is going downhill. Ergot is a little black banana that you'll see in the grain if it's not cleaned enough.
Is that ever a problem up here?
It's always an issue.
Uh-huh.
We have to send the grain to the bakers and distillers meticulously clean. It's beige, and both vetch seeds and ergot are black, so they stick out like a sore thumb.
Other questions?
Just informational. So how many, like do these combines, can Seth use it, the same combine for beans? Or for dairy farmers use them for grains?
You can,
Can.
if you have a different head, the very front unit that cuts and gathers.
How many combines do you think are in use in Vermont?
I would hesitate to guess. I know of Waterford, Glover, Charlotte, Greensboro. We have an old one that is back John Deere. And then, I hope there are a lot more than that. And I'm going to find out when I'm building this grain center in Addison County. Hopefully there are 16 scattered throughout the county. They're all in various ages, and hopefully they're under a good roof, because they're wonderful machines.
Representative Lipsky.
Yeah, on that subject, we've seen a lot of harvesting and combines that are coming out of Germany or Austria. Are these combines in the grain business, are they John Deere combines or are they Claas or some of these other?
Out of Europe, they're more likely Claas. You know, you can buy a combine for $1.5 million. They're beautiful.
Unbelievable.
You know, I get the Instagrams and they're lovely. Seth brought his out west for 28,000. He's a smart shopper. Ours was 10,000.
And what manufacturer? That?
These are all John Deere, all green, the ones I've mentioned in Vermont. But the grain farms are not large enough in Vermont to warrant new combines that come from Europe. When you need a combine in Vermont, you scour the ads for the Midwest and find one out there for $20,000 to $30,000, hopefully, instead of paying, you know, $500,000 for a new one from Germany plus. But the grain farms in Vermont, though they may be 80, 200, 300 acres, in Charlotte, 600 with hay, they're mixed in with cows. It's best to have them mixed in with cows for manure. And they're all diversified operations, sugaring, and that's the Vermont style. So we have combines that are older here that are still working fine when we take care of them.
It's just a follow-up because you, to my knowledge, are the first grain producer that's testified this year with us, and it's a riveting subject. And climactically, because of being maybe the moistest region, maybe outside of parts of Washington State, do you feel that despite how much rainfall or cloudiness we get, that it's going to be a growing sector in our agricultural community and a viable growing sector?
It's a good question.
Nothing to do with
it's a good question.
Repair. It's just
I feel it will, because we have people that want to farm, and when you can manage 60, 200 acres well, you got some income if you're committed. We stopped growing barley. That's why we could let go of our second silo, because of climatic changes, because it was too hot. Basically, you have to plant barley in Vermont in June, but in June it's often too wet to plant. And then it gets dry in July and that little plant dies. And I said, enough of that. You know, we lost $7,000 4 years ago when we were growing barley. And winter rye is good for us, but we're very much impacted by the summers getting hotter and drier. So we stopped growing barley, and now we only grow winter rye, which goes in the ground in mid-September. And the crop grows 6 or 8 inches before it gets cold, and then stops growing, and then it's insulated by the snow, and it's not hurt by the cold. Rye is cousin to what's in our grasses. And, you know, it gets through the winter. Rye is an incredible crop. It's a northern crop. If you look at the cookbooks, they have the recipes from Manitoba to Russia. That's where rye is grown, northern. It's perfect for our land. Mm-hmm. And so then 11 months later, after it's planted, what comes out of the winter, popping up through the snow and given moisture by the snow, and then the roots go deep before it gets dry in July. So it's a great crop being in the ground for 11 months. So we have selectively decided what we're going to grow based on the changes in the climate in order to keep going. And I know that the farmers will keep going. They're an amazingly courageous group of people.
You know, as a segue, I'm a logger. There are strict restrictions now on what type of seeds you can introduce on a log landing or skid rows to stabilize. They do not want conservation mixture, which has non-forest seed groups.
Yeah.
Winter rye is, for forestry, the one highly recommended of not disturbing the ecology in a forest environment.
Interesting.
It's tough.
Yeah,
It has a vital spirit, as I call it.
yeah.
It makes bread taste better. If you go to Red Hen Baking, you ask for sprouter nickel with our rye or Kingdom rye. I think, I work with a lot of bakeries, so I have to be careful what I say, but I think their sprouter nickel's #1 in the world. And it gives bread a lovely taste, and it's just perfect for Vermont. So there's more and more rye being grown as more bakers in Vermont are using Vermont grain. It's happening. It's really great. It's giving more business to our farmers, which is important. And they get a premium on it to pay their bills and continue to farm.
Thank you very much for coming in this morning. Appreciate your testimony. And we've got two other folks, I think. Good to see you. So you're welcome to stay and listen if you'd like, and if you need to be on your way.
Thank you.
Appreciate your.
I trust you all to continue doing the work. I'm going to go back and clean grain. Thank you for the opportunity. If you have any questions, please send a note.
Do you want to take your ride?
Yeah, I can't give it to anyone, I guess,
Well, we
because
don't know what to do with it.
We don't know if it's
I
worth
put it on the shelf.
a cup of coffee or not.
You can add it to the shelf if you want, yeah.
Was someone else's idea.
We've got George and Steve joining us by Zoom.
Say hi to the girls.
And if you're within earshot, turn on your cameras.
I think their audio's connecting, so
Okay.
maybe they can hear you now.
Right.
See.
Thank you.
Thank you.
George? Hi, Steve. I see that you're trying to speak. We can't really hear you. We definitely can't see you at all.
Yeah, I don't have a camera on the computer, but can you hear us?
We can hear you. Yes. Yeah. Good morning.
Good morning. Morning.
If you'd like to introduce yourselves, just tell us who you are and who you represent, where you work, and then you can launch right in.
Okay, I'm George St. Ange. I'm a custom operator in Orleans County. And we do crops for farms. We harvest crops with forage harvesters, and we mow with big triple M mowers, triple mowers on tractors. And we spread manures and that.
And I'm Steve Delpy, and I work with George, custom cropping, and I run the triple mowers, and et cetera. I'm one of his operators.
Great. And where are you this morning?
We are in my office in Coventry.
Great. Well, thank you for joining us. And we are happy to hear anything you'd like to tell us about the bill that we're working on, H81, the right to repair. An act relating to fair repair of agricultural equipment is the official name.
Right. On the, what I'm interested in is, for some reason, we have finally reached $1 million for a forage harvester now. So I guess my concerns are this unit has to be operated with proper technology usage. And for examples, I guess I could use the DEF fluid being used in all these machines now. We can't get away from it. One of the poorest things ever been invented. But anyway, when the DEF system acts up, it derates the piece of equipment. Now, if you get on it right off, you can save yourself. If you happen to go a little too far, by saying too far, I'm saying like this. I could call my regional mechanic here, and he might be in the Swanton area at the time. Now I'm doing the crops for a farmer, and I've I've got 150 acres down. We've got 50 left to go. He wants them done on a timely manner. So you try to keep going until your mechanic gets there and to plug in his computer. Well, then if you get to a certain point, that machine will stop. The only way you will get her moving again is to fix the problem and reboot the whole system with his computer and the port. Now, my concern there is that if we were allowed to buy these programs, something this minor, I call it minor because it can happen and it's not a serious matter. But let's say you put in a DAP filter into the element of this machine, you have to take a picture of it and you have to plug in the computer program and tell the machine you just put in number X412, that filter, and then she will connect and start moving again. Now this, to me, we should be allowed to do this. We're not affecting anything else. We're not burning anything up. But if we had the program to get moving again, you don't have to wait for your mechanic to get there. And with his computer, it's a very expensive item. Now these programs I know are not going to be that cheap. If we force the companies to let us buy them, you're going to pay for them, guaranteed. What I heard the other day is I'm talking to the mechanic about it, and he said, well, he says, you got to be ready for all these updates. Well, there's another concern. Many updates are happening in this world right now on these systems because I think, I hate to say it that way, but I think we're a little premature on this technology out into the ag world because we have conditions out there that really challenge the electronic components of these machines. So he says we have, we're getting updates all the time. Well, now if I plug in my program and I have not paid attention to the updates, I will not be able to function either. So I know that these are serious questions that we have to take care of. I also would like to say that probably 3 years ago, I did go to Montpelier and I spoke to a panel of congressmen, and one was your lieutenant governor, about what I had in mind is this technology is not something new, but it's been coming down pretty fast. And I'm saying that in our school system, we have a vocational ag program here at the high school. And some of these kids love to turn the key on these machines and hear that noise, but we got to learn how to operate them. So I wanted to suggest the fact that maybe we could have an internship program going on in these schools. And what you folks are talking about right now with this right to fix your own equipment, the technology there, these kids are all about that. They love it. They'd be great to learn that because some of these kids are not going to college. But there's no reason why we can't give them a good paying job to run this equipment right. And they can also have a family and buy a house, everything else. I really think that it's a need for this. But at the time when I went to speak to him, the lieutenant governor, I didn't think I would have been better off staying home and talking to the wall. Anyway, if you got any, I got other ideas of it too, but that's my main thing now. If you want an example of the other side of the story is this. I've got a forage harvester, and I'm sure you guys all realize that there is no forage harvesters made in USA, right? They're all German, Belgium, New Holland. So I had a master controller go on one of my units. So we were down for 8 days. The technicians had to come and all that. So finally we got one shipped to us, programmed from Germany. And they came and put it together for me and tried to program it. Well, we left the farm that night at 10 after 12. They were totally disgusted. But they had to talk to the engineer into the office in Germany. And they finally communicated the systems together so that the computers were talking to each other. The guys were talking too, but the computer talking to each other. And they finally realized that the master controller was the wrong number sent to me for that machine. So $16,000 for that master controller. So then they turned around and said they had to have that one back before they could send me the right one. Well, when you're a custom operator, this hurts because the the farmer doesn't want to hear that you're down and you won't have a computer for another 3-4 days or more. So now that's one incident. That's probably something where I don't want to have my own program to get into it to fix this problem. That was major. If I was to plug that in, I own that. Whether it's the wrong one or not, you own those computer controllers when you plug them in. So that would hurt. There's different ways of looking at that. But anyway, I'll have just Steve explain to you the benefits of the technology we do have on these equipment to use.
Great, thank you for that overview. And let me see whether anybody in the committee has a question.
Sure.
Representative Wilson? Oh, no, we've got it, yeah. Question. Representative Graham has a question.
So even if you had the diagnostic equipment, it wouldn't solve the problem of getting the parts shipped in from Germany. Is that correct?
Very much so. Does anybody carry extra parts? I guess I'd have to answer that very negatively right now, because they do not want to have a $16,000 controller on their shelf when you might not need it for a year or so. Another incident we had this past season was with another forge harvester that I have. It started, it ran, it did not move. So the mechanic came, and he came for 7 days straight, 7 days, all day long. We had more panels off that machine than what they used to build it. I mean, you could have seen this thing. But anyways, we have 44 computer control units on that forge harvester total. So I found out a lot about it then. So he started ordering some controllers. But for example, like number 7, the number 7 controller functions the powers of number 8 and 9 and 10 to function. But it won't do it won't do their function, but it will enable it to work. So he started ordering some of them. So anyways, they ended up getting 7 controllers, putting them in, and nothing was happening. So they flew an engineer from Iowa here, and he started trying to reprogram the new ones. He managed to get 4 of them done by noon. They left for lunch, and he came back, and the screen was blank. Now, if George St. Ange had his computer on there and that happened to him, I would not have the answer. I don't have the knowledge behind it that I'm talking to you folks that need to be sent out to the people. So anyways, what they did, when he come back, he sat down and the screen was blank and he was wondering what's going on. So he started over again, trying to reprogram those controllers. And all of a sudden it started happening again. But then he stood up in the seat and it blanked out again. So finally the whole scene comes to an end by taking the seat out of the chopper, and the wiring harness underneath the seat of 13 wires, there was one wire broke. So that was the solution to that problem. So they quickly sent a PIP out, and anybody that owns one of those like mine, they had them take the seat out to check that harness, because that was very costly. Because the 7 that he ordered, they were theirs, not mine, because I try to stay in the warranty if I can. So yeah, we always say that. Well, you got warranty on it, so you're okay. Well, we're okay until we buy that next new one. Because the price, you're gonna have to pay for it somewhere. And like I said, the new ones now, you're over $1 million for a good full-size machine with 2 heads.
How far does your mechanic have to travel to get to you?
Well, I'll be honest with you. He lives right here. He's in my barn at 5 o'clock in the morning. But if I don't catch him then, he's 40 miles away because there's other units in that area. And he is only one person to cover quite an area. They're trying to get another one trained in the Swanton area, and he seems to be coming along pretty good. But boy, it's hard to get that kind of talent out here. So it makes it hard. Like I say, he will be in my barn at 5 o'clock in the morning. That's one of the makes that I have. But the other kind that I have, he will not be there until they're good and ready to send him out. 2 different characters.
Representative Lipsky has a question.
Yes, Stephen, question on these foreign manufactured machines. Are they affiliated with any Vermont dealerships or New England dealerships? I mean, you mentioned Iowa. What's the closest representative here in Vermont or New England?
Yeah, we got dealerships here, but the brains are in Iowa for, let's say, John Deere. Memphis, Tennessee is a good one for Krone. Well, to be honest, there's 2 representatives from the Krone right now that covers the U.S. So that tells you something there. Of course, he's got, it's a pyramid thing. He's on the top, and he's got a bunch of other people underneath to spread out. But the technology, the representation, like right now, our 2 mechanics are gone to school for a week, and they're north of Ohio, I guess, this time.
Thank you.
But as far as, like the U.S. is not, I guess, I don't think we ever made a forage harvester. No, we've never, I don't know why, probably a market share thing.
Representative O'Brien.
Stephen, George, do you have different heads for the forest harvesters? So like they're going from what, first cut hay in May all the way through what, October, November for corn?
Right, yeah, we have a hay head that's gone there for all 4 cuttings of hay. And then we have 1 corn head that goes on in the fall for corn. 2 different heads.
And as far as breakdowns and problems go, as we've learned in this committee, if you're a farmer, or a custom harvester, you can buy a package from, say, John Deere, the customer service provider package. The dealerships have a more expansive It's the like dealership provider service that they have access to. So I was wondering, just of your breakdowns, what sort of percentage fall into more mechanical things? And what are more like you're talking about the DEF, that's emissions, and that's something that farmers really don't have diagnostic equipment for.
True, but I guess your package you're talking about, those are wear items. As far as computer controllers, there's nobody that has them on the farm or in the service department at the dealership. They, I'm sure that right now you could go to now I'm saying the name, but you could go to John Deere here in Newport, and I'll guarantee they got 7 controllers on hand there, but that's the one they order for my machine. But it will not have, if another fella up here's got a different model number, it won't fit those. Yeah, but the computer world is, I don't know we're not gonna go backward, no, but as far as supply, I don't know what to tell you there. How fast we can get some of these controllers the next day as far as that goes with John Deere. And Krone, I think we can get overnight air. They don't do it for nothing. But we can get them. But I still say that the learning of the programs is very important for us to fix our own stuff, because halfway through, if you go shortchange one controller and blow up another one, it's going to be on us. And if you call the dealership at that time to say, could you come and help me out? Well, guess what? It's not going to be, we'll be right there. We're choosing to fix our own, so we got to learn to do it exactly the right way.
Well, thank you both for joining us this morning, for answering those questions. I don't see any other hands, so I think we can let you go.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good day. Thank you.
Bye.